Salut French 102 students et bienvenue au chapitre 5, Les régions de la France. So you notice now we're in chapter 5. We've moved on, we're starting a new chapter, and we begin every chapter with a short culture lesson. I know we're studying lots of culture through our cultural discovery projects, but I think the cultural focus of each one of the chapters we're learning from is also a useful addition to that. So you'll see in this chapter, we're going to be looking at Les régions de la France. So instead of looking at all of the countries of the French-speaking world, we're going to focus in on France and look at specific regions of the country. Because of course, like any country, each region has its specialties. It has its kind of differences. Differences that are good, right? Because we get to learn lots of things from understanding different cultures and different traditions. Okay, so in addition to learning a little bit more about the regions of France, I think this is also a good opportunity for us to get some reading skills. Because, of course, when you learn a language, you're going to learn several skills: reading, writing, listening, speaking, grammar, vocabulary. That's like 6 different skills right there. So we'll look at reading a little bit while we also learn about culture. So you'll notice in this first short paragraph above these different images that come from different regions of France, I have highlighted lots of words in green, and that's one of the nice tools that you can take advantage of with this e-textbook. If you click on any word, it pops up different options. So if you are a person who likes to highlight or you like to put things in different colors, I really like using different colors to indicate different things as a study tool. So you can do that. You can add a note about it if you wanted to maybe add a definition or something. You can create flashcards, so that way you could go back and review words that you weren't so sure about the first time or that you want to remember. The other tools I didn't find to be super useful. Wikipedia, I think, wouldn't be extremely useful unless you're looking up a place. And Define doesn't really give you definitions because these are all French words, and I think that must be a tool that's embedded in all the e-textbooks from this publisher. Okay, so I think the best way to approach this is I'm going to go ahead and read the paragraph slowly to you, just so you have a chance to hear some more reading in French, see how much you can understand when you hear it the first time, and then we're going to go back and take a look at the words that I've highlighted in green. And we'll determine together why I've highlighted those words in green. How can they be helpful to you to understand better when you listen to French and to understand better when you read? Okay, so here goes. On y va. Quelles images viennent à l'esprit quand vous pensez à la France? Paris et la Tour Eiffel, des plages de la Méditerranée, les Alpes. En réalité, la France est un pays riche en diversité géographique et culturelle. Les contrastes entre la vie urbaine et la vie rurale sont les plus marqués. Alors que la France était autrefois traditionnellement un pays agricole, aujourd'hui, 4 personnes sur 5 vivent dans des zones urbaines. Okay, so now let's go back and look at some of these words that I've highlighted and see if they might help us kind of understand what's going on in that paragraph. So if we look at just the first question, image, esprit, do these remind you of words in English? Of course. Images, spirit, okay? The second sentence or second question, Paris, Tour Eiffel, of course, I know where those places are. All the other locations, Méditerranée, Alpes. So I'm thinking, okay, images of these different places, of Paris, of the Eiffel Tower, of the Mediterranean Sea, of the Alps. Okay, so this must be about different geographic regions in France, right? Okay, the next sentence, we have words like réalité, riche, diversité, géographique, culturel, contraste. So rich, diversity, geographic, cultural, contrast. We also see the words that look like urban and rural. So I'm kind of guessing, okay, if I'm thinking about France, It's rich in diversity, right? There's geographic diversity, maybe cultural diversity. There are contrasts between urban and rural in France, maybe. That's what it means. Okay, in the next sentence, I see something about traditions, agriculture, people, urban zones. So, yeah, all those content words, these are basically like nouns and adjectives and adverbs. All of these words are what we call content words. And content words give you kind of the core meaning of what you're reading. So when you see these content words, you can kind of make some guesses about what this paragraph is about. And basically what it's telling us is that, what do we think of when we think of France? Do we think of the main landmarks like Paris and the Eiffel Tower? Do we think about the Mediterranean, the Alps? Okay, and obviously France is a country that has a lot of diversity and different kinds of diversity. It's a country that has urban centers and rural areas. It's a place that has traditions in agriculture at the same time that it has sophisticated larger cities. So I might not understand every single word that I'm reading, but those highlighted words, along with some of these bolded expressions that you'll see here at the bottom of the page, kind of the glossary that they give to you there, that really helps us understand the gist of what we're reading. So these are great reading strategies. And all of this comes from your knowledge of English, because English and French share a history. Okay? They share a vocabulary. Our history was intertwined, England and France, at different points in the past. So because of that, our languages share a lot in common. So you can use that to your advantage. And basically what we call all these words are cognates. Sometimes there are false cognates, words that look like what we would think they would mean in English, but they're not exactly the same. I don't really see any of those here, though, and that doesn't happen a whole lot. Most words are true cognates. They're words that are very similar from one language to another. The pictures then show us different aspects of life in France. So we see here, il y a de grandes villes, and here we see the kind of monument that's right in front of the Louvre, which is a very famous art museum in Paris. That's where you would go to see the Mona Lisa. Il y a des régions agricoles avec leurs petits villages et leur vie pastorale. So agricultural regions, their little villages and their kind of pastoral life, or life of someone who works in agriculture. And you see it looks very different, of course, countryside versus big city. And we see the same contrast here in the United States, right? Okay, dans le sud, il y a des plages et des cafés inondés de soleil. So in the south, as you can see, is quite different from the large city of the north and the agricultural regions. So you see the coastline, you see the beach, les plages, des cafés inondés. What do you think inondé might mean? Does it kind of resemble a word you would see in English? A little bit like inundated, right? So they're like cafes that are flooded or inundated with sun. Now, it's kind of a nice way to describe that. Dans certaines parties du nord, on voit des plaines et des collines. Okay, so in certain parts of the north, we see plains and hills. So not mountains, but hills. Okay, so I think the recognition of cognates really helps you read more effectively, and it just makes it seem less intimidating, because you already know that half the words on the page you recognize already. So if you sort of piece those words together, you start to get an idea of what the reading is about. All right, let's take a quick look at the next page. It will take a minute to pop up here. And you see I did exactly the same thing with lots of cognates highlighted in green. Okay, so let's take a quick read through this paragraph and see if we can understand the meaning of this one. Il y a des différences dans les coutumes et des habitudes de vie entre le nord et le sud du pays. Dans le sud, par exemple, la vie se déroule à l'extérieur, sur la place principale de la ville, dans les cafés, dans les marchés. Mais dans le Nord, on privilégie la vie privée et l'espace personnel. Okay, so we see in the first sentence differences, customs. That almost looks like costumes, maybe, but it's customs. So differences, customs, habits, north, south. You can get a lot just from those highlighted words. So there are some differences in customs and habits between the north and the south of the country. Okay, so in the south, dans le sud, par exemple looks very much like for example in English. Okay, l'extérieur, exterior. So we might guess that's talking about outdoors or outside, right? So la ville, les cafés, les marchés. So a lot of things are happening outdoors, in cafes, in markets, open air markets. Those are very common in Paris as well. Mais dans le Nord, on privilégie. So privilege, maybe we give privilege to something. Vie privée, so private life. L'espace personnel, personal space. I think that's very much like what we might see in the United States too. In larger cities, people tend to be a little more distant, more having their personal space, where in maybe smaller towns and cities, people are a little friendlier. They might be more willing to say hello to strangers. I have experienced that living in different parts of the United States. Okay, moving on to almost the end here. Okay, dans certains endroits, on attend même des langues régionales à côté du français. It's important to look at the first sentence in this paragraph, especially langue régionale. So régional, of course, we know means regional, and we're talking about regional languages here. And that's actually why I asked you that question in the Cultural Discovery Project 1, because I really wanted you to explore this idea of different languages being spoken in different French-speaking countries. Yes, French is a major language that is in lots of countries around the world, but other languages coexist with it that might have been in that country or that region for a long time. Okay, so again, if we look at our cognate words, nord, sud, okay, and there's two other terms here, langue d'oil and languedoc. And those refer to regional languages spoken in the north, regional languages spoken in the south. Okay, another word we see here is disparition and majorité, présent exclusivement personnes âgées. Disparition might look to you like disappear. Okay, and you see also down here, exclusivement personnes âgées. That might lead you to think, okay, maybe it's only older people who are speaking these regional languages. And if you read the whole paragraph, you will realize that that is the case. So yes, French is the dominant language. Regional languages are primarily la majorité, right here, spoken by older people. They still exist, but maybe they are starting to disappear little by little. And that's a problem in many parts of the world. Okay, and you see a nice picture here. And it's basically just kind of like a cultural festival. It doesn't tell us in that picture exactly where it's happening though. Okay, la France est bien sûr un pays uni. Uni might look to you like unified, right? So France is a unified country, even if there are different regions with different cultures and languages. Okay, so we see histoire, langue, riche, culture, tradition. So we know that there's a long history, a rich history, diversity of languages. Again, we see sens, précisément, diversité, défini. So all these things define France and help to make the country what it is. Okay, so even though we didn't read every word of these paragraphs, that's something you could take a little bit more time to do even on your own. I think just having this strategy is a great place to begin to practice your reading. The more you kind of pick out these cognate content words for yourself, the more confident you'll be that you can read well in another language. So in French, even in other languages that have similar vocabulary to English, like Spanish or Italian or Portuguese, all of these languages share some things in common. German would even be another one. So I hope this was helpful, and at the same time, you were also able to learn a little bit more about the different regions of France. So, à la prochaine! Bonne nuit!